What would you do if a routine hospital visit revealed you barely have a brain? I'm being serious here. Imagine your entire skull was nearly hollow. No accident, no tumor, just empty space, and a whisper-thin rim of brain tissue pressed to the bone. And here's the real twist. This is not science fiction. This actually happened. A perfectly ordinary man, married, raising kids, working a government job in France, living with what some neurologists call almost no brain. Now, I know you're asking, how is that even possible? And what does this case reveal about the limits of human consciousness? And could it happen to you? Get ready. This is one of the wildest cases ever recorded in medicine. Welcome to Critical Encounters.
Enjoying the video? Yeah, I know. Me too. But listen, really quick. More than 90% of you guys watching this right now aren't even subscribed. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. It takes a whole team and a lot of work to put these videos together. Believe me, my cameraman right behind you, he's sweating bullets right now filming this. I don't ask for a lot in return, but what I'd love is for you to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. Doing that is a signal to YouTube that you want to see more of this content. It helps me, it helps our team. It's a small ask on your part, but it's huge for us. All right, let's get back into it.
Now, our story begins in 2007, in a little town called Marseille, France. A 44-year-old civil servant arrives at the hospital. His complaint? Mild weakness in his left leg. No trauma, no confusion, no seizures, just a persistent limp. Now, doctors, doing their due diligence, order a brain scan, and what they see, they can barely believe. The CT scan is almost all black. His skull filled with cerebrospinal fluid, and the brain itself squeezed into a thin, fragile crescent, hugging the edges of bone. Now, this man's story didn't start here. You see, as a baby, he suffered from a condition called hydrocephalus, a buildup of fluid inside the skull. Doctors inserted a shunt, a tube, to drain the excess fluid. And he grew up. The shunt was removed in his adolescence. He lived a normal life. But over decades, fluid unknowingly slowly reaccumulated, silently compressing his brain against the inside of his skull. Now, by the time he arrived at the hospital in his 40s, only a thin layer of actual brain tissue remained. There was no tumor, no bleed, no stroke, and yet he was living, working, raising his kids, and his only complaint? That weak leg. Now, the medical team, led by Dr. Lionel Fouillet, had to know more. They ran cognitive tests, physical exams, and psychiatric interviews. And according to the literature, here's what they found. No obvious neurological deficits. He could speak, read, and write. He lived independently, working a regular job, and cared for his family. His IQ tested at around 75 to 84. This was low average, but far from disabled. How does someone function with almost no brain? The answer stunned neurologists worldwide. Now, the secret, it wasn't the amount of tissue that mattered, but how that tissue was organized and how the brain adapted over time. There was no accident. The pressure in his skull built slowly over years, giving his brain time to adapt and reorganize. Now, this phenomenon, called neuroplasticity, helps the brain reroute functions and strengthen what's left. His brain didn't vanish. It was just severely compressed and reconfigured. Even with such dramatic loss of physical mass, the critical connections for consciousness, memory, language, and basic life skills remained intact. Now, it's a medical miracle, but also a medical lesson. The brain is not a simple machine where loss equals loss. It's a network, a living system capable of stunning adaptation. There are people born with only one hemisphere, for example, who live normal lives. Children who lose large portions of brain to surgery, but go to college. And this Frenchman's story is the ultimate case study. So all this begs the question, what makes us, us? Is it the sheer amount of brain matter or the way it's connected? Now, many neuroscientists point to something called the connectome, the complex web of synapses and networks that give rise to thought, memory, and consciousness. Cases like this one force us to rethink what's actually possible. Maybe intelligence and selfhood don't just depend on having a full brain, but on having a network that's flexible and robust. That's the deeper mystery. Could our sense of self, our memory, our dreams really be this resilient? Well, this story says yes, but it also warns us. Medical images can't always predict a person's true abilities. Human beings are more than scans and test scores. And this case isn't just a medical oddity. It has huge implications for how we treat patients with brain injuries. Should we be more cautious in making hopeless prognoses, for example, after brain trauma? Are there people diagnosed as vegetative who might have more potential for recovery than we realize? And what does this mean for end-of-life decisions? Now, forgive me, I know I'm bringing up more questions than answers in this video, but the reality is that this is a case that is super intriguing. I mean, it caught my eye the first time I saw an example of this case. I think it was a short video on YouTube where someone highlighted the case. But when I dove into the research to make this video, what I found was there's very little research out here about the implications of all this. It's certainly a medical oddity, and the reality is it brings up more questions than answers. You know, every time a story like this surfaces, we're reminded, never underestimate the human body's ability to adapt, survive, and defy expectations. So, what's the takeaway here? The man with no brain wasn't a miracle. He was proof that the brain is the most adaptable organ we have, and that sometimes the limits of life are much wider than we dare imagine. Now, if this story opened your mind or made you question what's truly possible, welcome to the party, by the way. But also, be sure to subscribe for more true medical mysteries. I'm Dr. Dynamo, and this story has been a critical encounter. Stay dynamic, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.